welcome. The show is in honor of programming for veterans, their families, and the general public also, but the primary function is to reach out for veterans and let them know what's out there for them and what we have. Now with us today we have Mr. Ashton Stewart. He's a Navy veteran and he works with a group called Sage Vets. And welcome, Ashton. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, Ed. Thank you, Paul.
You're welcome. Of course, our co-host Paul Dietrich is here as always, and Paul makes it work. He gets people to come in and talk to us.
So, give us a little bit of your background in the Navy. When did you serve? Where did you serve? And what did you do for our country?
No problem. But before I do that, I just want to thank you both for having this show, providing all these vital resources to veterans, and also for your contributions to protecting our democracy. So thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. So yes, I'm a Navy veteran, and I served during the first Gulf War. And it was way back at the beginning of that war when it was still Desert Shield aboard the USS England, which was a guided missile cruiser. And we were the lead warship in the area. We got a Navy unit commendation because of our work. We were basically waiting for the cavalry to come in. So we were there alone for a while and just waiting for the forces to arrive. I was an electrician. It was a very stressful time, but I'm honored to have been a part of the American military.
So you served as a target for a while.
Yes. Sitting duck, but at least we were like moving a little bit.
Yeah.
So yes, and now I'm working with Sage, running the Sage Vets program. I'm the manager of that program, and Sage Vets is the only program of its kind. It serves the older LGBT veteran population. It's a New York State program that's funded by the legislature, and it was formed in 2014.
You have to be 50 years or older to be part of that program?
That's correct, yes. But let me just add that if any veteran, whether they're LGBT or not, or LGBT and under 50, we're a referral program, and we would never turn anybody away. It takes a lot for a veteran to make that call, to seek resources and benefits. So we have a lot of resources to refer people to, whether it's in the city or whether it's somewhere outside.
I am very glad to hear that, because in this day and age, to get somebody to make the phone call and we talk about 21 suicides a day from veterans, and that's just one nasty word, suicide.
Sure is.
I can deal with it. And if you finally get somebody who's calling you, at least you're gonna take the bull by the horns and get it.
You bet.
Get it to
right
somebody
place.
that can help them. That's
You
the
bet.
important thing. So while the program specifically deals with LBGT 50s and older, you can be referred to any of the other programs that are out there, and they've got the resources to do that. That's the important part to our veterans out here, or the veterans' families out here. If you need help, this is an asset for you to call. Do you have a phone number that they could call?
Absolutely. 212-741-2247.
Okay. You could repeat that.
212-741-2247. Ask for Sage Vets or ask for me, Ashton Stewart, and I will be more than happy to help you out and get you connected to whatever provider was going to be the most effective at helping you out. And to carry on with what you mentioned with the suicides, we all know too well that statistic of 21 veterans take their own lives every day. It's horrible. It's very concerning. And the thing is that they did a study in Massachusetts, and the suicide ideation for the LGBT veteran population is higher than the general veteran population, and they attribute that to heterosexism and homophobia and the lack of support. Which is why Sage Vets was created, because most of the veterans who are 50 and older served during a time that predates Don't Ask, Don't Tell, which ended in 2011. But before it ended, between World War II and 2011, over 114,000 veterans were discharged for sexual orientation.
Now, Sage Vets, is that a state program?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes, it is. So I travel the state, and I work with veteran service agencies, LGBT groups, VAs, And we do presentations. Sometimes I go to task force meetings in some of the smaller counties and regions that are attended by all the service providers in the area. I talk about our work. We share our resources, so that way they can show that they're supportive of the LGBT veteran population, because sometimes that's all it takes. I often hear that veteran providers don't know any vets that are 50 and older that identify as LGBT. But when we share our resources, sometimes I got a phone call and we'll just get the conversation started. And sometimes I refer them back to the same agency that they picked up the brochure, because that's all it takes. Is like they see the support, they have a few questions that they didn't really feel comfortable asking because they weren't sure if it would go over very well. So we, in addition to doing the presentations, their main focus is educate, advocate, and commemorate. So the educate part is when we go out and do these presentations. We work with the VAs. Each VA is supposed to have a LGBT veteran care coordinator. They're very supportive. In fact, I'm wearing my We Serve All Who Served pin from the VA. And so we work with that population, and we also figure out what groups are in their region that may have other veterans, so that way we can reach out to them, share more resources, get connections that way, and of course the elected officials as well. We work with the veteran committees at the city, Senate, and Assembly level to make sure that they get updates about what we are doing, and also to ask them as well for a little bit of guidance on who we should be reaching in the region. And in this month, I'll be participating in the New York State Fair for Armed Forces Day. I'm really excited about that. It'll be our second year going up for me personally. I'm also going to Rochester and Buffalo. I go to Long Island a lot. I'm the only person running the program, but I go everywhere. And I often hear that my biweekly report is a little extensive. I'm like, well, this is what I did. Because it's just like, as a veteran myself, and working with this group, it's so meaningful. And also working with other providers, meeting people like you, being here today, and seeing that kind of support. And helping out veterans, because that's what we're here for. That's why you have this program. That's why we have Sage Vets.
And again, I think going back to what you said before, they served. Regardless of what they are, they're veterans, they served. And that's the important thing. And now, maybe at some point in their life, they're going to need support of one kind or another. And this is an opportunity for them to reach out. And again, the contact information will be on the lead-in coming into this, so that if anybody needs to contact you, we'll also put the phone number out again. But again, reach out, do yourself some good, and get into some of the programs that can help you. We do not need suicides. Do not need them. No, absolutely.
Do you know, it's just to touch on that again, it's the suicide rate in the U.S. general population is 4.6%. It's 10 to 20 for the LGBT population, and it's 35 to 55 for the transgender population. And another thing is New York State has the 5th largest veteran population in the country, and it also has the highest percentage of veterans that don't get their health care at the VA. And it's statistically proven that the veterans that take their own lives successfully are mostly not enrolled in the VA. And the LGBT older population of vets is very reluctant to identify as veterans because of the experience they had. They were in the closet. They were very afraid about getting outed. Some of them were outed, and they were one of the 114,000 discharged for sexual orientation. So there is a general distrust, not only for the VA, but just for mainstream institutions, for family, because historically family would ostracize you if you were out. The other private providers, religion, police forces have all been known to discriminate, so it's really hard for this older group. And then, of course, you start to deteriorate as you age. Yeah. You're isolated, you're alone. So this is when you start to see the unique challenges for the older LGBT population that are vets, because not only are they're living alone, they're not accessing the benefits and services that are going to make them live well. They rely on other older LGBT adults to help care for them. But Sage was started in 1978 with the whole purpose to help eliminate some of these challenges older LGBT adults face. They have a whole series of programs from daily meals and nutrition, benefits counseling and legal assistance, health education and support, fitness, arts and culture, case management, support groups, including a veteran support group, caregiving support, friendly visiting, and the first LGBT-friendly affordable housing ever in New York City. And they're building a structure both in Brooklyn and in the Bronx. And most of this work is only possible because of the unwavering support that we get from the Department of the Aging that has helped eliminate many of these issues. And not only that, we offer home visits that we can go and we can assess the situation and really start giving the caregiving support that is necessary to help these individuals. And let me just carry on one more thing. We've got 5 sites throughout the city, including a collaborative SAGE Center here in Staten Island. And so we have there's 17,000 veterans in Staten Island, and a few of them are part of the SAGE Vets program. And there's 38,000 LGBT individuals who are veterans across the state, 17,000 of which are in Staten Island.
So those are the ones that have identified.
Right, exactly, because that's also a challenge to really put your finger on it, because a lot of the older veterans have not come out to identify themselves. So it's a challenge.
Well,
and that's
I could see that because I joined, and when I joined back in 1963, okay.
Well, I was still in high school, by the way, just to repeat that.
I think I told you earlier I hate you.
I wasn't born yet either.
The point I was trying to say, when I joined, if you came out and told them you were in that category, they weren't going to take you. It was short and simple. They weren't going to take you. And so to speak of on my ship, I don't know if there were any. There may have been, but they were deep in a closet if they were.
Let me tell you a true story, Ed. There was an individual named Perry Watkins who was...
Okay, but he got drafted.
He was drafted, and from day one during that draft, he told them he was homosexual, and they drafted him anyway. And he served well, and he kept re-enlisting. And not only that, he had a wildly popular drag show as Simone that the Officers Club just were enthralled about and booked him for all of their holiday parties while he was in Germany. And it was in Stars and Stripes, and he kept re-enlisting, and they knew what his orientation was.
Right.
And then when he signed up for the final 4 years so he could get his retirement, his full pension, they kicked him out. And for what? For being gay. And he fought them, and he ended up winning after many appeals. And not only did they reinstate him back into the Army, they also gave him his full pension and back pay. And that is like one of the very few situations that actually happens. Yeah, it's like a real life story. And that's the other thing. It's like there was that bias. It was actually policy of the military to anti-gay. They thought it was a security threat. They thought it was bad for morale and discipline. However, a lot of the veterans I've been working with, one in particular that I can think of, he had a top security clearance. He got a good conduct medal, accommodation medal. He was highly decorated, a hero who served here in Vietnam. And that just like totally puts that bias on its head. And I think that is why the end of Don't Ask, Don't Tell happened in 2011. And it was very supported in both in the whole government, the Congress and the Senate.
Without a doubt, there were a number of heroes in Vietnam that fell into the category of the gay community. And they served their part, and those guys that were seeing combat forgot their orientation and everything once they got to combat.
Right.
Bullets are coming.
World War II.
It's really not a critical factor.
That's right. It goes back to the early days of our military, back to Valley Forge, William von Steuben, the Prussian who came to make our fighting unit cohesive, because at that point, we had all these militias, but there was no cohesion, and we were trying to fight the British. And so he came up with a whole plan to organize the military. And between that, his effort, and some other help that we got, we ended up defeating the British. But he was very openly gay, William von Steuben. In fact, there's a Steuben County in New York State named after him for his contributions to helping.
Really?
Yeah, establish the United States. So there is a lot of history, and it goes all the way back to Valley Forge from the very early days. And it's when I talk to these veterans, the commemorate part of our program for Vietnam Veterans Recognition Day, we had a very moving program that we partnered with the New York State Division of Veteran Services. We had about 50 veterans who served during that era, either in combat, boots on the ground, or during the era, who all came, and they were so moved and touched by the recognition. It was a long time.
Vietnam veterans in particular were not, regardless of their orientation, got a bad deal. They were not welcome. They were not recognized.
Yeah.
And basically they were put down.
You're right.
And that, just any kind of Vietnam veteran took a lot of crap.
It was a mistake.
For doing what
Exactly.
their country asked them to do.
It was a mistake on part of our society to let that happen. They didn't start the war. Most of the people that were serving in the war were drafted. And to think that they came home to that treatment is horrifying. As a Persian Gulf veteran, I didn't experience anything close to that. But
I've mentioned that myself. In fact, when I deployed through Atlanta Airport, we were led through and cheered.
Wow.
That's
It's a
the
different
difference.
experience.
When I came home, we were booed in the airport.
Yes.
We were called baby killers.
Oh, gosh.
I mean, we reached a point where guys ditched their uniforms
Yep.
and they became Johnny Civilian. I mean,
You
we
didn't
asked
even want
why
to
I
talk
never
about
joined the
your
VA.
event.
You know, that's horrible. And
Yeah.
you didn't deserve that, Ed.
No.
And none of the Vietnam veterans deserved
Nobody
that.
deserved that.
No, you're darn right.
Okay.
So part of this ceremony, they got proclamations signed by Governor Cuomo, and they got lapel pins commemorating the 50th anniversary of the end of the war. And also Commissioner Sutton from the New York City Department of Veteran Services came and gave a presentation.
Good.
We had representation from Governor Cuomo's office. It was just powerful. The whole ceremony is available on Facebook, I'm sure, somewhere. But that's kind of what we do. We also, of course, we march in the Veterans Day Parade. And most recently, we shared stories from some of our veterans who were part of the Stonewall riots 50 years ago. As you probably know, it was the 50th anniversary of Stonewall this year. And Staten Island is unique in the fact that they have the very first Pride Festival out of the whole city every year, which is pretty awesome. That goes to show there is support for the LGBT community out here. And not only that, the Sage Center here in Staten Island has a group. But the Zappalordi Society was formed because of a Vietnam veteran named Jimmy Zappalordi, who dropped out of high school to enlist into the Navy, and he served on a supply ship off the coast of Vietnam. But Jimmy suffered from mental illness, and he was discharged with what the Navy deemed as a nervous breakdown. And he returned to Staten Island. He's a Staten Island native, and he returned to care for his bedridden mother. He was a churchgoer, good man, and he worked at his father's stained glass window shop. And he was murdered 15 years after he returned in what was recorded by the NYPD as the first recorded gay hate crime. And they had only started tracking that kind of crime 10 years prior. It certainly wasn't the first time somebody was killed for being gay. But his memory lives on through the Zappalordi Society. They are a group that supports LGBT members of the society who do suffer from mental illness. And they also helped get a street named after him in Staten Island over in Charleston called Jimmy Zappalordi Lane. And this year, the State Division of Veteran Services is working with the Zappalordi Society to have a plaque put near the cabin where he lived in Arthur Kill. And there's going to be a volunteer day because some of the growth and overgrowth needs to be cleared out before they put the plaque up there. But that's going to be something happening this fall. Sage Vets, of course, will help get some volunteers for that effort. But it's really a meaningful tribute, and that's here in Staten Island. And this is just a hero who served here in Vietnam that was just brutally murdered, stabbed to death by two guys. It's a sad story, but it's nice that there was something good that came out of it.
One thing that I'd like to talk about that we haven't really spoken about, and I think this is important to a lot of veterans, discharge upgrades.
Yes.
A lot of veterans who came out were discharged with bad paper,
Yes,
what
sir.
we would call bad paper.
Yes, sir.
And there's a lot of other veterans that are out there in the same situation. Talk a little bit about that procedure. And I know it from the other side. I know it from the board that reviews those applications, having sat on boards like that. And it is a very, very difficult procedure, particularly when you're talking about a veteran that's been out of the service for 50 years.
Yes.
Because where are your witnesses? You've got to have witnesses at any kind of court proceeding or board proceeding. So could you talk a little bit about that and what SAGE does to help veterans for that?
I certainly can. We have two cases for direct discharges for sexual orientation that we've partnered with our legal partner. We're really grateful for our relationship with the Veteran Advocacy Project. They're part of the Urban Justice Center, and they are top-notch. They've helped us with so many veterans in different legal issues, and their specialty is discharge upgrades. One veteran didn't want to even pursue it. I kept talking to him about it. He's like, what difference is it going to make? Because he's older. He's in his 60s, and he's just like, what difference is it going to make? I said, it's going to make you feel better, first and foremost. So we have applied for both of these veterans. The second veteran will be entitled to his pension at the state level if he gets the upgrade. I'm going to talk more about the state level perspective here in a moment, because the federal perspective is what you're talking about.
Yes.
When you go before the boards. That has to go through the Department of Defense. It's a very laborious, lengthy process. It takes about 3 years, even though it's supposed to take 1. But that is bureaucracy at work there. So we've got 2 cases that are ongoing. The best way to do it is to find a pro bono or any sort of legal help to help you with the application, because you're right, you need to find evidence. Mostly they go through your service records and find evidence of good character, whether it's during service or after, and also good service record. Right. And like I said, a lot of these veterans do have outstanding records up until a point. And one of the veterans, it says specifically on his discharge, is other than honorable, and it says the narrative is for homosexual acts. His life was changed after that. Not only was he discharged, but he couldn't get a job that required a security clearance after that. It's painful. It's really painful. What happened for the one vet is you can get a change of discharge when the VA will recognize the character of a discharge as honorable. So that way, even if you have a less than honorable discharge for your sexual orientation, you can still be eligible for pension and low-income pension, certain benefits through the VA, and that's through the change of discharge. But
And care, if I'm not mistaken.
And care, absolutely. And you don't have to have an honorable to get care at the VA.
Yeah.
It's sort of up to their discretion. But these are cases that we can help out with. And I encourage people to call if they have questions about this. And the other thing, because we're funded by the legislature for the work that we do, they asked for our input for legislation that just got passed this year at the Senate and the Assembly called the Restoration of Honor Act. It was sponsored by Senator Brad Hoylman and Assembly Member Dee Dee Barrett. And it passed unanimously at the Assembly, and we're waiting for the governor to sign it. And what it's going to do is anybody that was kicked out for sexual orientation with a less than honorable will be considered under honorable conditions for state veteran benefits. And there are many of them. Our suggestion was that there are veterans who were kicked out for sexual orientation, but a secondary sort of issue happened because they were harassed or discriminated against, sometimes MST, military sexual trauma, terrible situations. And so we wanted to make sure that people who abused drugs or had a difficult time because of all this harassment and situation who still got a less than honorable discharge, we didn't want them to fall through the cracks. So we said, why don't we include everybody who got a less than honorable looking at it through the lens of mental health and mental wellness. If they had PTSD or other mental health issues that led to the discharge, they should be included in this as well. So waiting for the governor to sign it, and once he does, those veterans will have to show, provide an affidavit to the New York State Division of Veteran Services, and they will be entitled to statewide veteran benefits, including the pension.
The important part there is that that's state, not federal.
That's true.
It's only state, so it's only within New York State.
It's true, but the more states that do this kind of legislation, the more pressure that will be put on the federal government to make the changes at that level.
I understand. It's just important that our audience understands.
Easier said than done.
No kidding.
Yes.
Easier
And
said
how.
than done.
So true.
And you get into certain areas in the breadbasket of the country where the Baptists have great influence, the Baptist churches have great influence. Not going to happen.
It depends on what state you're living in.
Yeah.
And that's true for discrimination for LGBT individuals as well. It depends on where you live. Fortunately, New York State is very open to its population, including veterans, and we're lucky. And we're lucky to have a program like Sage Vets. And I'm lucky to be here with you today, getting the support you're showing for the
Do
program.
you interact with the VA at all?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
Do you have any problems interacting with the VA?
No. Every VA is different. I will say that. Some VAs have a more accommodating program than others. But they do have LGBT veteran care coordinators that we reach out to. We share our resources. We also refer veterans to the VA as much as we possibly can because, like we mentioned earlier, the VA is there for veterans. They understand the veterans, especially combat vets who have unique needs compared to the other, the rest of the population. So yeah, we do presentations, and in fact, I'm going to be going to the Brooklyn VA with my supervisor next month to give a presentation at the Grand Rounds, just like a little bit more cultural competency and also a little bit more about the LGBT veteran population, and we're really looking forward to that. And I also go to I'm going to do an event, the Bronx VA on Monday. We're going everywhere. Like I said, I'll show you my bi-weekly and my reports, and you'll see how much we do.
Now, the people you answer to within Sage Vets, are they veterans as well?
The people, like my supervisors?
Yeah.
No, we do have a few veterans who are part of SAGE. But my supervisor is actually the director of the Care Management Service Program. We've got several social workers, and I work with them when we have a client who's got a little bit more of a need for that support. They're trained. I'm not a social worker myself. I have a master's in public administration, so I can run the program and I can connect people to the providers that they need to improve their lives. But that is my supervisor.
Okay. I have to ask you one more time. Give your phone number out because we're just about out of time.
Okay.
And I want to, if somebody wants to reach you, how do they get to you?
Definitely. They can also email me at astewart@sageusa.org, and that's A as in Apple and Stewart, STEWART, at sageusa.org, and that's S as in Sam, A as in Apple, G as in Golf, E as in Echo, USA.org, and 212-741-2247, extension 138.
And even if you are not gay, if you're a veteran and you need help, here's another resource you can call, and you will be referred to the services that you earned by your service through this organization.
You bet.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you've been watching In Honor Of. It's always our pleasure to bring you programming for information that's to assist veterans. And God bless you for watching.